Sheikh Gumi has once again stirred up conversations across Nigeria with his latest comments about the ongoing security challenges plaguing different parts of the country. The controversial Islamic cleric made some striking comparisons between bandits operating primarily in the northwest and the indigenous peoples of Biafra, known as IPOB, which has been agitating for the independence of the southeast region. According to Gumi, these two groups represent fundamentally different threats to Nigeria's stability, and understanding this difference is crucial to finding lasting solutions to the nation's security crisis. During a recent interview, Sheikh Gumi explained that bandits terrorizing communities in states like Zamfara, Kaduna, Sokoto, and Katsina are not seeking to break away from Nigeria or establish a separate nation. Instead, he describes their activities as being driven by a desire for revenge against what they perceive as injustices committed against them and their communities. The cleric, who has become known for his controversial advocacy for dialogue with these armed groups, insists that these bandits are reachable through negotiation and willing to listen to reason. He contrasts this with IPOB, which he says has a clear separatist agenda and wants to leave Nigeria entirely, making their case fundamentally different from that of the bandits in the north. This is not the first time Sheikh Gumi has made headlines with his views on banditry and how the government should approach the problem. Over the past few years, he has consistently advocated for dialogue and amnesty programs similar to what was done with Niger Delta militants years ago. He believes that many of these bandits are young Fulani herdsmen who have been pushed into criminality due to cattle rustling, land disputes, and what they see as systematic marginalization. According to Gumi, if the government engages them properly and addresses their grievances, they can be reintegrated into society and convinced to abandon their weapons. The comparison between bandits and IPOB has sparked intense debate on social media and among Nigerians from different regions. Many people in the southeast find the comparison offensive and deeply problematic. They argue that IPOB's agitation, regardless of how one feels about their methods, is rooted in political demands and historical grievances dating back to the Nigerian Civil War. The group has consistently called for a referendum to allow the Igbo people to decide their own future, and their supporters see this as a legitimate political struggle rather than terrorism or banditry. On the other hand, bandits have been responsible for mass kidnappings, killings, sexual violence, and the displacement of entire communities. The critics of Gumi's statement ask how one can compare a political movement, however controversial, with armed criminals who have made life unbearable for millions of Nigerians in the northwest. The activities of bandits in northwest Nigeria have reached alarming levels in recent years. These armed groups have attacked villages, burned homes, killed traditional rulers, and kidnapped thousands of students from schools. The psychological trauma inflicted on communities in these regions cannot be overstated. Farmers can no longer go to their farms without fear of being killed or abducted. Children cannot attend school safely. Markets have been abandoned. The economic impact on these states has been devastating. Yet, Sheikh Gumi maintains that these criminals are open to negotiation and that branding them as terrorists or treating them solely as military targets will only worsen the situation. He argues that many of them took up arms because they felt they had no other option after losing their cattle, which represents their entire livelihood, to rustlers or government policies they did not understand. Gumi's advocacy for dialogue has made him a polarizing figure in Nigerian discourse. Some people appreciate his willingness to enter dangerous territories and speak with these armed groups face to face. They see him as someone genuinely trying to find a peaceful solution to a complex problem. Others view him as an apologist for criminals, someone who gives legitimacy to murderers and kidnappers by suggesting they are merely misunderstood victims of circumstance. The fact that he draws distinctions between bandits and other groups like IPOB only adds fuel to accusations that he applies different standards to different forms of violence depending on the ethnicity or religion of those involved. The situation with IPOB is equally complex and emotionally charged. The group emerged in response to long-standing feelings of marginalization among many Igbo people who believe they have been systematically excluded from power and resources since the end of the Civil War in 1970. IPOB's leader, Nnamdi Kanu, has been in detention facing trial for various charges including terrorism and treasonable felony. His followers insist he is a freedom fighter advocating for self-determination, a right they say is enshrined in international law. The Nigerian government, however, has designated IPOB as a terrorist organization and has cracked down heavily on its activities, particularly after violent clashes between the group's members and security forces. The Southeast has also witnessed attacks on police stations and government facilities, which authorities attribute to IPOB or its armed wing, the Eastern Security Network. When Sheikh Gumi says that IPOB wants to leave Nigeria while bandits do not, he is technically correct in one sense. IPOB's stated goal is the creation of an independent Biafra nation. However, many people find his framing deeply troubling because it seems to excuse the horrific violence committed by bandits simply because they are not seeking secession. The implication that their crimes are somehow less serious or more forgivable because they want to remain part of Nigeria strikes many observers as absurd. Kidnapping is kidnapping. Rape is rape. Behind these crimes does not make them any less heinous or their victims any less deserving of justice. If you are finding this discussion interesting and you want to stay updated on the latest news and analysis from around Nigeria, please take a moment to subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss any of our videos. Your support really helps us continue bringing you quality content every single day. Now let us continue examining this developing story. The federal government's response to both security challenges has been heavily criticized from all sides. In the Northwest, military operations against bandits have had limited success, with some arguing that the military's heavy-handed approach pushes more young men into the arms of these criminal groups. At the same time, critics say the government has been too soft, pointing to reports of bandits receiving amnesty and cash payments only to return to their criminal activities shortly afterwards. In the Southeast, the government's approach has largely been militarized, with heavy security presence and operations that have resulted in numerous civilian casualties, according to human rights organizations. Many Igbo leaders and activists argue that the government needs to address the underlying political grievances through dialogue and genuine efforts at national reconciliation rather than simply trying to crush IPOB through force. Sheikh Gumi's latest statement brings to the forefront a difficult question that Nigeria must grapple with. How should the country deal with different forms of internal conflict and violence? Is dialogue appropriate in some cases but not others? Should the government's response be determined by whether a group seeks secession or merely wants to air grievances while remaining within Nigeria? Or should the response be based solely on the level and nature of violence perpetrated, regardless of the underlying motivation? These are not easy questions, and Nigerians across the country have vastly different answers depending on their own experiences and perspectives. Sheikh Gumi's statement has also raised questions about the perceived double standards in how different security threats are discussed in Nigeria. Many people point out that some regions are often heavily militarized in response to security challenges, while there seems to be more advocacy for soft approaches like dialogue when it comes to problems in other areas. They note that IPOB was quickly designated a terrorist organization, but it took years before bandits were even called terrorists, and many influential figures continued to describe them as criminals rather than terrorists, even as their atrocities mounted. This perception of unequal treatment feeds into broader feelings of marginalization and unfairness that underlie many of Nigeria's conflicts. Before we wrap up this discussion, do not forget to like this video if you are finding it informative and thought-provoking. Your engagement helps the algorithm show our content to more people who need to stay informed about what is happening in Nigeria. Also, share your thoughts in the comments section below. Do you think Sheikh Gumi has a point about the difference between bandits and IPOB? Should the government pursue dialogue with bandits? What do you think is the best approach to solving Nigeria's various security challenges? We want to hear from you, so let us have a respectful and productive conversation in the comments. Thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end, and if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, please do so now and turn on notifications. Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.